Welcome back to the Life with the Browns. What if everything Kody Brown built was finally collapsing? Not because Christine, Janelle, or Mary walked away, but because Robyn had reached her breaking point. After years of loyalty, sacrifice, and silence, Robyn Brown is now whispering the unthinkable. She's losing respect for Kody. The dream is crumbling. Their family home is already on the market, and whispers say a new woman could soon enter the picture. But is this the end of Sister Wives as we know it? Or the beginning of something even darker, more explosive, and more devastating than anyone imagined? It didn't start with fireworks. It began with a whisper that bled into fan forums, Reddit threads, TikTok reenactments, and YouTube breakdowns until it exploded into the public eye. A private moment, never meant to be seen, was caught on camera. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. But what it captured was raw, unfiltered, and shocking even to the most diehard Sister Wives fans. Kody Brown, arms folded, jaw clenched, the self-proclaimed patriarch who once boasted of balancing 4 wives and 18 children, stood cornered. Across from him sat Robyn, not weeping, not raging, but trembling with something colder: disappointment. The fight didn't start over love or betrayal. It started with money. A financial decision Kody had made alone, one that touched their house, their savings, their future. Robyn, blindsided, whispered, "You should have told me." Kody's reply wasn't fiery. It was worse. Cold. "I didn't think I had to." For years, Robyn was seen as Kody's confidant, his chosen partner, his emotional anchor. But in that moment, she wasn't his favorite wife. She was just another woman left in the dark. "I trusted you," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought we were in this together." Instead of remorse, Kody exhaled frustration. It was urgent. "I didn't have time to factor in everyone's feelings." And that's when the spark hit the powder. Robyn stood, not with fury, but with resolve. "This isn't about me. This is about respect. You made a decision that affects me, our kids, our home, and you didn't even consider me." Kody shook his head. "You're blowing this out of proportion." The silence that followed was suffocating. A silence heavier than any screaming match. A silence carrying years of unspoken truth. Then came the words that detonated across the internet like a bomb. "You keep saying I'm your partner, but what if being an afterthought is no longer enough for me?" The clip cut there, but it was enough. Within hours, it went viral. Fans dissected every frame. TikTokers reenacted the scene. Reddit threads exploded with speculation. Was this the beginning of the end for Kody and Robyn? Was she finally seeing the truth the other wives had known for years? For the first time, fans saw Robyn not as the insulated favorite, but as the rule. She was now enduring the same coldness, the same dismissiveness, the same isolation that Christine, Janelle, and Mary had suffered. And her calm, measured heartbreak shook viewers more than any outburst ever could. Because this wasn't just a fight. It was the unraveling. Kody wasn't angry. He was detached. Robyn wasn't dramatic. She was devastated. And together, they were exposing the truth, that even the strongest illusion of love can collapse in silence when respect is gone. The internet lit up. Some called it karma, Robyn finally getting a taste of her own medicine. Others saw her pain and empathized. But one thing united everyone: the realization that even Robyn, Kody's chosen one, wasn't safe. And that's what makes this moment unforgettable. It wasn't edited. It wasn't staged. It was reality, raw and unfiltered. A mirror held up to anyone who has ever whispered, "I thought we were in this together." The Brown story is no longer about plural marriage. It's about betrayal, control, and what happens when love itself is no longer enough. And for Kody and Robyn, the cracks are no longer hidden. They're on full display for the world to see. Full display for the world to see. What shook the internet wasn't just the fight. It wasn't even the words. It was the rawness of it all. This wasn't staged. This wasn't a producer's plot twist. This wasn't a PR stunt to grab headlines. This was real. And that's why it hit like a blade. Because if Robyn, Kody's favorite, the one he chose above all others, could be betrayed, what did that say about everything we thought we knew? It flipped the entire story on its head. For years, Kody and Robyn's marriage had been sold to us as the last stronghold. The others had fractured, but they were supposed to be unshakable. Yet here it was, unraveling before our eyes. The questions it left behind cut deeper than any answer could. Did Robyn stay? Did Kody apologize? Did they even speak once the cameras stopped rolling? We don't know. Maybe we'll never know. But what we do know is this: For the first time, Robyn wasn't just a character in a reality show. She was a woman, a wife, a partner staring at the man she trusted, asking why he made choices that carved her out of the life they'd built together. Kody wasn't the smug patriarch anymore. He wasn't the man with all the answers, the one who believed his word was law. He looked smaller, caught in the silence of his own decisions. And the moment Robyn's voice broke the air, softly trembling, it became unforgettable. "You made that choice without me. No music. No build-up, no edit. Just a sentence so soft it chilled every viewer who heard it." Kody blinked, stunned. And then defense. "It wasn't about you." Those words, careless and dismissive, detonated inside Robyn like a buried memory. She stiffened, fingers clutching her sleeve. She had heard this before. Not in those exact words, maybe not in that exact moment, but the meaning was familiar. Because this was Kody's pattern. He didn't include, he declared. He didn't ask, he decreed. Her voice shook, but she kept it steady enough to deliver the truth. "I don't feel like I'm part of your decisions anymore. I feel like I'm just here to listen to what you've already done." And Kody had nothing. No anger, no justification, only silence. That silence was louder than any screaming match they'd ever had. Robyn's words began to unravel, carrying years of pain she had buried even from herself. "I left everything for you, Kody. My family, my friends, my life. You said this would be a partnership. You used to tell me everything. You used to trust me. When did that end?" Kody's brow tightened, not just with frustration, but with something deeper, fear. Fear that she was right. Fear that as his world collapsed, he had stopped treating even Robyn as an equal. But instead of facing it, he tried to dismiss her again. "You're being overly emotional." And that was the moment thousands of women watching at home gasped. Because nothing cuts deeper than having your pain reduced to just emotions. Robyn didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She steadied herself, voice breaking but sharp. "I'm not being emotional. I'm being honest. There's a difference." The fight was no longer about one financial decision. It was about every time Kody had silenced her voice, every moment he chose control over respect. Then came the word that broke him. "I'm disappointed." Disappointment is worse than anger. Anger burns hot and then fades. Disappointment lingers, it stains. It rewrites what you thought you knew. And in that moment, Kody Brown, the man who always had an excuse, looked deflated. "You can't tell me I matter to you," Robyn whispered, "and then keep shutting me out." That's not love. That's just control with a kinder face. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't chaos. It was quiet. And quiet heartbreak is the kind that lingers. The truth wasn't just that Robyn felt left out. The truth was that Kody's last stronghold, his perfect marriage, was fracturing. And the illusion that Robyn was different, that she was chosen, that she was safe, was shattered in front of millions. And then came the line that echoed across the internet like a haunting chorus. "I thought I was your safe place. Now I feel like I'm just another responsibility." Those words weren't loud, but they changed everything. Because Robyn Brown wasn't playing the role of favorite wife anymore. She was simply a woman, breaking under the weight of a love that no longer felt like love. And Kody? For once he had no words. This wasn't just drama for TV. This was the collapse of the last piece holding the Brown family together. The Brown family together. When Mary slipped into the shadows, everyone thought Robyn would remain the constant, the loyal, the quiet, the compassionate wife who always stood by Kody no matter the storm. But this moment, this was different. There was no fury in her eyes, no sharp accusation on her tongue, only pain. Raw, weary pain. The silence between them wasn't empty. It carried years of compromise, swallowed words, and sacrifices disguised as loyalty. And then, in a voice almost too fragile to believe, Robyn said it. "Maybe I don't fit." The words sliced the air. Kody stirred, shoulders tense, eyes locked on her. Not with love, not even with understanding, but disbelief. How dare she? His loyal one. His chosen one. To back away now, even slightly, was a violation of the unspoken pact between them. "You don't mean that," he whispered. But Robyn shook her head. "I didn't think I did. But maybe I do." That second sentence hit harder than the first. Fans who saw the leaked clip dissected it frame by frame. Her hesitation, his bewilderment, the crack in both of their voices. It was too real to ignore. Too human to brush off. And that's why it spread like wildfire. Because people recognized themselves in Robyn. They recognized the woman who kept quiet for years just to keep the peace. They recognized the partner who sacrificed her own voice to keep someone else comfortable. They recognized the slow, suffocating feeling of realizing loyalty had turned into invisibility. Kody swallowed, reaching for his old script. "Robyn, we've built everything together. This house, this life. We've weathered worse." But Robyn didn't flinch. Her reply cut him at the knees. "But have we, Kody? Or have I just been pretending everything was fine? Because I didn't want to lose you." For once, Kody had no answer. Because there wasn't one. He tried again, weaker this time. "You're the one I talk to. The one I trust. The one who's always been there." Robyn's voice sharpened. "Then why don't I feel trusted?" Silence. Heavy, choking silence. And then she said the words every fan would replay in their heads for days. "You stopped looking at me the way you used to. You began looking at me as someone who would stay, no matter what." Kody's facade cracked. "You were the one who wasn't supposed to leave." Her reply was devastating. "I was, but not if I'm invisible." At last, Kody sank into a chair, head in his hands. "I never meant to make you feel invisible. I thought we were on the same page." Robyn's hands folded tightly in her lap. Her voice steady, almost rehearsed. "We were once. But now I think I only exist in your world when I agree with you. And the moment I don't, I'm just like the others." His defense collapsed before it left his lips. He muttered, "You're not like the others. You're different." Robyn nodded slowly. "And maybe that's the problem." She stood, not to storm out, but because she was drained, emptied. And in that stillness, everyone watching realized this wasn't a fight. This was grief. Grief for a marriage they thought was stronger than it was. Grief for the love buried beneath silence, assumptions, and control. Then came the line that broke the internet. "I never wanted to feel this way. I just wanted to be loved for who I am, not for how well I play along." Kody's reply was haunting in its weakness. "I don't know how to fix this." Robyn turned to him, her voice no longer trembling but resolute. "Begin by looking at me." That sentence, so simple, so devastating, exploded across the internet. Fans turned it into captions, reaction videos, memes, and podcasts. Because it wasn't just about Robyn. It was about every relationship where one partner gives and gives until they no longer exist in their own story. For once, the Sister Wives fan base wasn't divided. They weren't just watching a show. They were witnessing something raw, something painfully familiar. They weren't debating polygamy anymore. They were talking about respect, about love, about the quiet violence of not being seen. And that's why this moment became monumental. Because it wasn't a storyline. It wasn't staged. It was real. And for the first time, Robyn Brown, the woman once seen as untouchable, wasn't safe in Kody's world anymore. This wasn't just the unraveling of a marriage. It was the unraveling of the illusion itself. Unraveling of the illusion itself. People weren't just watching a marriage crack on television. No, what they were witnessing was something far more universal. A moment of raw truth. When Robyn Brown whispered that she didn't even know if she was supposed to be there anymore, the words cut deeper than reality TV. They pierced into the lives of millions who had silently lived that same breaking point in their own homes, but had never dared to say it out loud. The camera lingered, almost by accident. Kody Brown walked away, pacing like a man whose crown had slipped. Robyn sat alone in another room, her body stiff, her lips pressed tight, her pale face caught in a war between composure and collapse. She wasn't trembling, no. She was holding it in, holding herself together while her entire world tilted beneath her. Her eyes were glassy, unfocused, as if she were no longer in that room but trapped inside the replay of every betrayal, every doubt, every silent dismissal that had built to this moment. And Kody? He paced in the shadows, one hand clutching his hip, the other rubbing his neck. His face flushed, not with rage, but with humiliation, with the bitter recognition that silence could wound deeper than words. For years, he had mistaken control for closeness. But now he felt it, the unbearable sting of distance from the only wife he thought would never leave his side. The silence that filled that house was suffocating, louder than any fight could have been. Robyn pulled her knees down, looked toward the doorway, hoping, aching that Kody would return. Not to fix it, not to make it right, but simply to see her, to notice her, to prove that her voice hadn't been too much. But he didn't walk through the door, not yet. That hesitation, that cruel pause was the most haunting moment of all. When he finally did step back into the room, the air was so heavy it felt as though it could shatter glass. He stood behind her in silence, and she never turned to look at him. Not because she was avoiding him, but because she wasn't ready to see who he had become. Or worse, who he no longer was. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't an apology. Just her name. Robyn. One word carrying the weight of everything unsaid. Her reply was a whisper drenched in exhaustion. I don't want to talk right now. And that was it. Silence returned. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of two people realizing love had slipped away so quietly, so gradually, that by the time they noticed, they were already strangers sharing the same house. Viewers were shaken because this wasn't sister wives anymore. This wasn't about polygamy or property or who slept where. This was about the collapse of a partnership. It was about every couple who has sat in that same silence, realizing the person they once loved had become a shadow. Robyn and Kody became a mirror, and millions saw themselves staring back. Later, in interviews, Kody didn't apologize. He didn't own his mistake. He justified it. He spoke of committees and decisions as if inclusion were a burden, as if listening to his wife was one more task on his to-do list. To him, he was the glue holding the family together. To everyone else, he was the reason it was breaking apart. And then came Robyn's confession, soft, weary, stripped of all pretense. She admitted it wasn't about one decision. It was about years of erosion, the silence, the loss of intimacy, the cruel realization that proximity had never meant connection. Just because we were together more, she said, didn't mean we were close. That line shattered the illusion, because that's what so many couples discover too late. Closeness without intimacy is nothing more than loneliness in disguise. Kody ended his interview with a hollow declaration. I love Robyn. I always have. I still do. But by then, the damage was clear. Love wasn't the question anymore. The question was whether it had already faded into something neither of them could bring back. And maybe Kody did mean it. Maybe he truly believed that love, on its own, would be enough to hold everything together. But Robyn Brown had already spoken the answer out loud in her own quiet way. Love isn't enough when you stop listening. Love isn't enough when you push someone to the edges of their own life. Love isn't enough when you refuse to change. For the first time, Kody Brown was staring into that truth, and the illusion that their bond was unbreakable lay in ruins. They weren't enemies. They weren't villains. They were simply two people standing in the wreckage, struggling to understand how something they built together had slipped away so completely. Robyn's interview carried the weight of that truth. She wasn't playing the role of loyal wife anymore. She wasn't protecting Kody's image. She sat there with her hands in her lap, not as the favorite wife, but as a woman, worn down, introspective, and exhausted. After a long, aching pause, she whispered the words that set the tone for everything that followed. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Not an accusation. Not a performance. Just the kind of line you say when you thought you were safe. When you thought you had more time. From there, she unraveled, not in anger, but in memory. She recalled how Kody once made her feel like she belonged. How he would call her at midnight just to talk. How he used to look at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Then her voice cracked into something softer. I haven't felt that in a long time. That was the heartbreak. Not betrayal, not rage. Just the quiet confession that somewhere along the way, their connection had withered without either of them realizing. It wasn't this one fight, she said. It was the gradual unwinding. From conversations that once stretched into the night to quick check-ins. From shared dreams of the future to separate projects. From being a partner to being a placeholder. Then came the line that froze fans in their tracks. It's like I was the last one standing. Not because I was chosen, but because I was the only one who hadn't left. Christine had walked away with fire in her heart. Janelle had drifted into her independence. Mary had faded long before she was officially gone. And Robyn, the one who stayed when no one else would, was realizing she might never have been standing on solid ground at all. She admitted she excused Kody's behavior. She gave him patience. She gave him loyalty. She gave him faith. Faith that love could weather the coldest winter. But then she said the words that tore the illusion wide open. Love isn't a reward. It isn't a performance. You can't just show up, say the right things, and expect everything to be okay. You have to live it. And somewhere along the way, I think he stopped living it. That line hit like a hammer. Because anyone who's ever felt the distance growing between themselves and the person they love knew exactly what she meant. Her voice lowered. It's not about the land, or the choices, or even the way he talks to me now. It's about the silence. The fact that he walks by me in the kitchen without seeing me, that he forgets things I've said, not because he didn't hear me, but because he didn't listen. And then, with devastating simplicity, she asked the question no one expected. Sometimes I wonder if I was just easier to manage, easier to agree with, easier to love. In that single sentence, Robyn revealed her deepest fear, that Kody didn't value her voice, her heart, or her mind. He valued her silence. And now, finding that voice, she feared it might be too late. This wasn't the loyal, polished Robyn the audience had known for over a decade. This was Robyn the woman, breaking free from the role she'd been assigned and setting a boundary for the very first time. Not a threat, not an ultimatum, a boundary. "I'm not leaving," she said. "But I'm not staying the way I was either." That was the turning point. Not a dramatic walkout. Not a staged confrontation. Just the quiet realization that love without voice isn't love at all. That loyalty without respect isn't devotion, it's obedience. And that she, at last, was done confusing survival for partnership. The comments poured in. "I've said these exact words to my husband." This isn't Robyn the favorite wife. This is Robyn the woman. Even her harshest critics admitted her pain was real. And in her trembling voice, they heard their own. Because this moment wasn't just about Kody and Robyn. It was about every partner who has ever realized they weren't being seen. Every relationship where silence became the loudest sound. Every person who stayed when they should have spoken, until the day they finally did. Until the day they finally did. For over a decade, Sister Wives was framed as a story of faith, family, and Kody Brown's dream of unity. But all it took was one trembling sentence from Robyn Brown to strip the illusion away. She sat before the cameras, glassy-eyed, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't supposed to be like this. No anger, no theatrics, just quiet heartbreak. And with that one line, millions of viewers across the world leaned closer. Because this wasn't just Robyn speaking to Kody. This was every woman, every partner who has ever felt unseen in their own relationship. What happened next wasn't reality TV anymore. It was reality. That clip went viral, not because of polygamy, not because of scandal, but because of recognition. Women flooded social media saying, "I've said these exact words to my husband." Men admitted they never realized until it was too late what silence and distance had done to their marriages. Therapists, podcasters, even casual viewers dissected her tone, her hesitation, her glassy stare. But the power of the moment wasn't in analysis. It was in its raw truth. Robyn wasn't acting. She wasn't defending herself. She wasn't even accusing Kody. She was trying to figure out loud, what had gone so terribly wrong. She spoke of beginnings, of midnight phone calls and tea made without asking, of the way Kody once looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been chasing his whole life. And then, in the softest of voices, she admitted she hadn't felt that in a long time. It wasn't a betrayal she was grieving. It wasn't even anger. It was the slow death of connection. The kind that happens so quietly, you don't see it slipping away until it's already gone. She said it wasn't about one fight or one choice. It was about the unwinding. The transition from dreaming of a shared future to assigning themselves separate tasks. From being partners to being placeholders. And then she delivered the line that broke the internet. "It's like I was the final piece remaining, not because I was chosen, but because I was the only one left." In that moment, the weight of a decade came crashing down. Christine had walked away, battered but certain. Janelle had slipped into her independence. Mary had been alone long before she left. And Robyn, the so-called favorite, the one who stayed when no one else did, suddenly realized she may never have stood on solid ground at all. Her words were not bitter but exhausted. Not defensive but raw. She confessed she had excused Kody's distance, defended his temper, held faith in a family that was already collapsing. She thought love, if tended carefully, could survive any winter. But then she said the words that silenced everyone watching. Somewhere along the way, he stopped living it. Love wasn't enough. Not when you're invisible in your own kitchen. Not when your voice is ignored, not unheard. And then came the unthinkable. Sometimes I wonder if I was just easier. For the first time, Robyn wasn't the protector of Kody's reputation. She wasn't the enabler. She wasn't the favorite wife. She was a woman confronting the terrifying realization that maybe she wasn't loved for who she was, but for how easy she was to manage. And when she said, "I'm not leaving, but I'm not staying the way I was either," everything shifted. This wasn't a threat. This wasn't an ultimatum. It was a boundary. Gentle, tearful, but firm. And that's why it went beyond television. Viewers didn't just see Robyn, they saw themselves. They saw the invisible labor of holding a marriage together alone. They saw the exhaustion of waiting for someone to see them, to hear them, to remember that love is not performance, it is presence. Comment sections filled with confessions. I judged her for years, but now I see her. I thought I was alone until she said it. 14 years married, and I've never cried at TV. But when Robyn said she felt like a responsibility instead of a partner, I lost it. And then came the final blow, the one that made it clear the dream was gone. April 2025. Coyote Pass, the land that was supposed to symbolize unity, the empire Kody promised would outlast them all, was sold. $1.5 million on paper, but in reality, it was the death certificate of Kody's vision. For Janelle, it was freedom. For Mary, vindication. For Robyn, it was a trap. Her name tangled in the deeds, her loyalty questioned, her position shattered. And for Kody, it was the collapse of everything he thought he could control. So what now? Can Kody and Robyn survive the wreckage? Or is this the final unraveling of the man who once crowned himself patriarch over 4 wives and 18 children? The world isn't waiting for romance anymore. They're waiting for accountability. For the first time, fans aren't rooting for a happy ending. They're rooting for an honest one. Because in the end, Sister Wives isn't about polygamy anymore. It's about what happens when silence is broken. When someone finally whispers, "Enough." And the truth? We didn't watch Robyn Brown fall apart. We watched her wake up. We watched her wake up.